Drumming is an excellent way to express yourself. Um, I believe that drumming over time helps you be more expressive in your everyday life. Um, it's also a very good stress reliever. Coming home from a hard day of work or something and you want to beat something up, that's the way to do it. Um, the only thing about drumming is that setting up a drum set is not very easy. At least at first, it's not. Um, so setting up a drum set can be hard, but I'm going to show you in this PowerPoint how to set up a drum set the proper way, or my way, I guess I should say. Um, so a lot of people have their way of doing it. It's all about the way you feel most comfortable. Um, I personally like to start with tuning my drum sets. Um, I like to tune each individual drum head just so that it sounds good and doesn't sound sour. The star on the drum in the picture is the movement that you would want to make between the knobs on the outside of the heads. Um, so after that, I like to move on to the kick, making sure that it's right in the middle. Um, Putting the kick in the middle, it's basically the centerpiece of your entire drum set. Um, I like to make sure that the legs are right there, sturdy, so it doesn't move while I'm playing. Um, so after that, I move on to the high tom and the medium tom. They're the ones connected to the bridge right above the kick. Um, so when you're doing that, you want to make sure that the toms aren't super close to the or like right on top of the kick because they'll rattle and make a lot of crazy noises. You don't want that while you're playing. Um, so after doing that, I like to make sure that my floor tom is where it's supposed to be. I personally like it right on my leg, like at the leg height of my leg. Um, that's just the way I like it. Adjust the legs, adjust the angle. It's all about the way you feel most comfortable. Um, so after that, I like to move on to the snare stand. Um, I'm short, so my snare stand has to be pretty short, like pretty much all the way down as far as it can go. So after you pry it open, get everything situated, you got your snare stand. Um, so after that, I like to take my snare and actually put it on the stand. But before putting it on there, I always make sure that the springs at the bottom of the snare are intact and not rattled up because it can give it a weird sound if you're hitting it and they're all messed up. So you want to make sure that those things are looking pretty good. So after that, I move on to my cymbals. I start with my ride. Um, Usually a ride has an arm. Um, you want to make sure that the arm is situated the way you want it to be. Everything looks good. It's at the height that you need it to be. And then after that, you move on to the next cymbal, which is going to be the crash. Um, Usually this one doesn't have an arm. It can have an arm. There are attachments that you can add a second crash to that crash. Um, it just depends on how many you have and how much money you have, of course. Um, so yeah, just the same thing as the ride. Make sure it's in the right area, right height. Um, I then move on to the hi-hat. The hi-hat is pretty easy. You just have to make sure that it's in the right height. Um, Make sure the cymbals aren't all the way closed or super wide open. So other than that, hi-hat's pretty simple. Then I move on to the chair, or I like to call it the throne. Makes me feel fancy. Um, so mine is usually pretty short because I'm short again. Um, so it really depends on how you feel comfortable sitting in that chair or that throne. Uh, Pretty easy. After that, I like to make sure that everything that I put there was put correctly. I like to double check my work, make sure that the toms are in the right place, the kick is stable enough to take my beating, um, make sure that the cymbals are in the right angles, and make sure the cymbal stands have the right height, and that's pretty much it. Like, I like to make sure that everything is perfect the way it's supposed to be, at least the way I feel most comfortable playing it. So after that, I like to move on to actually putting the hi-hat cymbals on. Um, the cymbals, it can get pretty tricky. Um, you have a little thing that goes inside the top one. So if you don't know how to do that, that's kind of a problem because it's tricky. Um, so you just gotta make sure it's not super closed, but not super open because it gets really annoying. Um, and back to the chairs, they sometimes have one of those adjust bars. Mine does not, so I have to manually fix it, make it taller, shorter. It's really nice to have one of those bars, but most of them don't unless you buy a really expensive one. Um, but after that, I like to move on to actually playing it and making sure that everything feels right. Because there's only one true way of knowing if it feels right, and that's by playing it. So after playing it, if it feels good, then you're good. Um, so yeah, that's how you set up a drum set. If you are playing for a band, there you can take them down, put them in the little cases, um, and so you can take them wherever you need to take them. Then after once you get to where you need to go, all you have to do is repeat the process that you just did. Um, you can do it the way that I just taught you. You can do it the way that you want to. It's all about how you feel it will be the best to play it on. That makes sense, I think. Um, so yeah, that's how you make a drum set.